Hello, I'm Mark Ellen. Thanks for clicking this word in your ear, the latest of hundreds of conversations David Hepworth and I have had on this podcast we started 17 years ago. Some with ourselves, others with musicians, authors, comedians, and other people we like. If you enjoy them and want to support us and keep it all coming and get extra entertainment, including the weekly quiz and a special event on your birthday, visit patreon.com/wordinyour-ear or just like or subscribe in whatever way you prefer.
Word down your way. Testing 2, 2.
We're very pleased to be joined on this special Word Down Your Way by Graham Nash, who's played all kinds of extraordinary gigs at Woodstock, Live Aid. But I saw him at the Battle of Variety Club in 1968. Is that ringing any bell for you, Graham?
No, Battley is definitely not ringing any bells.
I have to say, the Hollies were a really good live group, and that can't be said often enough.
That's right. The Hollies were a really good live band, yes.
Extremely good. Now, let's go back a bit further. We usually ask on these Word Down Your Ways if you remember the first time you played a live show or the first time you went to a live show.
What was the first gig you saw?
Those are two different questions, and I'll answer both of them.
Yeah.
The first show that Alan and I ever did as two teens was in Manchester. Carol Levis, who was a Canadian promoter, would get the 10 popular artists at each venue, and you would each do a song, and then he would come at the end and put his arm above every act, and whoever got most applause won. So this particular night, on November the 19th in 1959, me and Alan did Conway Twitty's It's Only Make Believe. Freddie Garrity, who later became Freddie and the Dreamers. Ron Wycherley, who later became Billy Fury, and four kids from Liverpool who were Johnny and the Moondogs.
So they were on that show as well? Wow.
Yes, they were.
And so who were the four? So that was John, Paul, George?
And the drummer was, I think, from the Big Three in Liverpool.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, Hutchinson, his name was, Brian Hutchinson.
So who won? Who won?
Actually, Allan Clarke and I did.
Oh, right.
The Beatles.
Unfortunately, yes, only because the last bus to Liverpool was at 9:00 at night. And the show didn't end until 10 o'clock. So they may have won. They did Think It Over by Buddy Holly.
Wow.
So they may have won, but they couldn't stay till the very end.
Right. So what was the first show you went to see?
At the Free Trade Hall in Manchester in 1958, I saw Cliff Richard and the Shadows.
Wow.
In 1960, I saw the Everly Brothers at the same place, the Free Trade Hall. But the most exciting one for me was Bill Haley at the Palace in 1958.
Right.
When he would have been, I'm trying to work it out, 43 or something like that. Did you think of him as an old man?
No, we were so excited the show was fantastic. Me and Alan were sitting on the first row of the balcony, and a little tiny spotlight hit the curtains, and the curtains opened, and a head came through and said, "See you later, alligator." And the show started, and me and Alan have never been the same since.
Brilliant.
So you were a duo, first of all. You were a kind of harmony act, weren't you? You were the Everly Brothers, the answer to the Everly Brothers, Manchester's answer.
We tried to be.
Did you meet them? You met them, didn't you?
Yes, we did. That night, we noticed that there wasn't a bus outside the Free Trade Hall. So they weren't going to get on a bus and go to a different town. And we also knew that one of the best hotels in Manchester, the Midland Hotel, was only 100 yards away. So we kind of thought that that's where they would be staying. Allan Clarke waited until about 1:20 in the morning. And it was pouring, it was raining, and we knew that we had to walk 9 miles home, but we didn't care. And about 1:20, round the corner came Don and Phil. And they stood and talked to me and Alan for what seemed like 20 minutes, but would only have been a minute or so. We told them that we'd like to sing like them, and one day we would love to make records and stuff. And they called us by our names. They called me Graham, and they called Alan. And it was an incredibly exciting moment for us.
Wow. Well, let's just go forward to the Hollies. As I said, the Hollies were a really good live group. What kind of technical limitations did you have in those days? I'm trying to get an idea of what it was like playing package tours and so forth in the 60s. What kind of PA and all that kind of thing did you have?
We bought a PA from Sweden, and it made a hell of a lot of difference to us, because at least we knew that we could be heard. And we had some Reslow microphones. And like you said, the Hollies were a really good band. Basically, it was basically Tony Hicks and Bobby Elliott on drums. Tony Hicks, of course, on lead guitar, and Butch Meffam who just passed away a couple of years ago, unfortunately, on bass. And we were a good band because Alan didn't play anything. He just sang. I played acoustic guitar, but I wasn't plugged in. So it was pretty basic music, but the Hollies were good.
Can you remember some of the people you supported? Because I think you supported Little Richard at one point, didn't you?
We did, but in New York City. At the Paramount Theater in New York, where Buddy Holly and Elvis played, and Frank Sinatra and stuff. We watched Little Richard, and when he was leaving the stage, he was screaming. And we stood to listen, of course, and he was screaming about his lead guitar player. Don't ever play your guitar behind the back of your head ever again. And it, of course, was Jimi Hendrix.
So you over the years, as I say, it's a long career. You run into these people again. Do you find you do this? Did you run into the Everly Brothers again many years later, or anything? Remind them about meeting in a street in Manchester?
Yeah, in 1966, the Hollies were playing at the London Palladium. Pete Seeger was the headliner. We were supporting him. And after sound check around 4:30 in the afternoon, the phone rang backstage. And our tour manager, Rodney Shields, who had been with us for years, picked up the phone. He said, yeah, yeah, he's right here. Okay, I'll hand the phone over. And he hands me the phone, and I go, who is it? He goes, it's Phil Everly. I said, hey, don't piss around with me like that. That's not fair. He said, it's Phil Everly. So I pick up the phone. I go, hello. He goes, hey, Graham, it's Phil. I said, well, this is good. This is unbelievable to talk to you. What can I do? He said, well, we're going to be in England to do an album called Two Yanks in England. Oh, yeah. And did the Hollies have any songs that they hadn't recorded yet? And we had about a dozen songs. We went down to their hotel in I think it was the Ritz Hotel in London. And we played them a few songs, and they wanted to do 7 of them. And so we said, okay, I'd love to come to the session. When is it? He said, 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
not over bed.
Did you really tell them that you'd met them, that you got along and met them?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Oh, yeah. That must be really touching.
It was very touching, because, even though they may have been lying, it was great. And part of that backup band on the Two Yanks in England was a pianist called Reggie Dwight.
Of course.
Yes.
Later Elton John, of course. John Paul Jones on bass, and Jimmy Page on guitar.
So, Reg Dwight played piano on the Hollies record, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Which one was that? I've forgotten which one it is.
I think it was The Air That I Breathe.
I think it probably yes. So you're playing. That was the London Palladium. Now you're playing the Palladium on this tour, I think. When
Yeah, yes, that's right, and I'm really looking forward to it. And we asked our friend Peter Asher to open up for us, and that's what he's going to do.
It's fantastic.
That's a wonderful combination.
So when did you first meet Peter Asher? That must have been 1964 or something like that.
It was exactly 1964. Yeah, he was one of the first people that befriended us when we came to London, to really play. Peter Asher has been a friend for a long time. I've been in touch with him many, many times. And I'm really pleased that he's going to open up for us on our UK tour.
So tell us about this tour. I think it's billed as Stories and Songs. Is that right?
Yeah. A lot of people, people that don't write music think that songwriting is incredibly mysterious. And it really is. I'm still not sure how it happens to me. But I tell stories about, why I wrote Marrakesh Express, why I wrote, Just a Song Before I Go, why I wrote Our House, why I wrote Teach Your Children. And people are very interested in the stories.
Right. And you enjoyed telling those. You enjoyed that feeling.
Very much so, because I don't want to be the person that they're all sitting there looking at. I want them to be a part of the audience also. I want us all to be there, experiencing the music all together.
Right. So what are the songs that you have to play? There must be some stuff you just got to do.
Some of the songs that I've written 50 years ago are still incredibly relevant today. Things like Chicago, We Can Change the World, Immigration Man, for instance, Military Madness. It's all going on today and is still relevant today, and it's kind of amazing.
Right. I just have to ask one thing. When you played at Woodstock, Crosby, Stills and Nash, you said that was your second gig.
Yes.
I mean, I wonder what your first one was like. But what was the experience of playing that show, being filmed in front of that audience?
It was a very interesting show. David and I were doing Guinevere, just two voices and one guitar, but we wanted to reach the very last row. But that very last row was a couple of miles away. It seemed. Yeah. It was rainy. It didn't rain when we were playing, fortunately. It was an incredible show. And I think that the myth of Woodstock has grown much larger in the coming years.
Yeah. It's the film, isn't it, really?
Right.
That's well.
I've never seen the film. I've seen our part of it, and I've seen a couple of, John Sebastian and Richie Havens, but I've never seen the entire movie.
Well, that's a treat. Yes.
Well, on a rainy Tuesday afternoon,
when there's nothing happening in Manchester.
It's got 10 years after on it,
Yes, it does. Yes.
Well, look, Graham, that's all we got time for. Thanks very much for talking to us.